Cool. I just want to keep picking that fight. Gotcha. Whatever. Not going to keep fighting that crap. Yep, get with the program, please. I've had some days. Oh, God. I really wish things would stop picking fights with me. That would be nice. There we go. I don't know what happened last time. I think something might be wrong with the microphone on the webcam on the laptop. So I don't know if I'll be able to use that for doing too many videos. And I'm not going to be able to get that to work for me either. What do we got? So, a safety pin somewhere? That'll probably work. If not, I'll put it through my earlobe. How's that sound? Crazy? Crazy. Yeah. It is brutally hot, and I'm kind of tired of it. I've been sweating my butt off for the last 2 days, and it is not a fun ride. Yeah, so I've got the microphone set to blue. It should be clipping out some of the sound of the air conditioner running. Because it's still like 80 something here at night. And I guess that'll be what it'll be. Hoping it settles out over the next week or so. Because I'm not down for this. It wrecks my health. It really messes with my digestive system. Which I'm not sure everybody completely understands how that could be the case, but yeah, no, you're just going to be a jerk. All right, cool. Okay, really, dude, when I ask you to do something, please don't pick a fight with me in the middle of a video. Oh, come off it. Okay, everybody wants to just pick that fight. Gotcha. I see how this is going to go. Does that work? That works. Well, chances are at some point it's going to fall apart and I'm not going to notice it and I'll just give up. But as it stands, good enough. So what were we looking at last time? I sure hope whatever the hell was causing me excruciating pain the other day doesn't come back. So we were at YouTube. Pull up my past video that I privated because the audio wasn't there. Stupidest thing ever. Okay, so yeah, I did respond to the message you sent. I don't know if my moving the video over to private means that it's not visible for me to respond to. Man, I am so sick of this heat. Okay, so we are public now. So playing around with solo tabletop games was what we were talking about last time. Is what I talked about last time that nobody could see or hear. So there's that. So I think basically what I was talking about last time was, what day was that? That was the 7th. So that was Monday. So Sunday night. Yeah. So that was after, I think, yeah, Saturday was the day I went to the emergency room. And I'm not sure if that's a consequence of COVID vaccine shot. Because as I remember first going through COVID, I do remember during the recovery time afterwards, I had a lot of feeling like I was having indigestion or reacting to foods or maybe even getting asthma. But I just chalked it up to a few things. And then after the first vaccine shot, where I had that high fever, which I'm pretty sure went higher than the one I just had. When I had that first shot, I had it on a Thursday, had a fever through Friday, took a Tylenol on Saturday, early morning Saturday. Seemed to get over most of it by Saturday night. And that Saturday, I feel like I was getting over it. Might have even had a little bit of like a headache on late Saturday, early Sunday. Not like a headache, but a dull ache. And then I had to get ready and go back to work on that subsequent Monday, which is what I think I did. I went back on that Monday, and I feel like it was then and that subsequent Wednesday when I had shifts at work where I felt like such pain and like I just couldn't breathe. And I thought it was something in the air systems. But this time around, I got my second COVID shot, had a high fever that came earlier, took a Tylenol that night, felt mostly recovered by midday the next day. So by Friday, a few hours before Friday started, I started with the fever, and I lasted with that for about six or so hours. Took a Tylenol, went to sleep, woke up mostly recovered at that point. So for Friday, I was mostly recovered. Friday night around midnight and into Saturday midday, I had the most excruciating pain in my upper GI. Like my diaphragm for my breathing. I couldn't tell what it was. It just hurt so bad. And we ended up going to the emergency room, and they gave me an IV with a little bit of painkiller in it, and it just stopped a lot of that pain, which was a blessing. That was a good thing. But I'm wondering now, like a couple days after the first shot, I had similar problems. And a year ago when I had COVID, my mind sort of recalls that around that time I had some similar issues. Not nearly as bad either of those times as it was this time, but boy howdy. I'm hoping that was vaccine response, a reaction. But in all probability, what it really is it's my chronic digestive ailment reacting to the stress of the vaccines or the virus. The first one was the virus. But yeah, it's been a bit of a mess of a few days. I got a few more things I need to do at the end of this week. Probably, I don't know that I'll be able to do a video on Thursday night because I think I have to go back up north in order to get to something early on Friday. And I might give it a try, but we'll see. And then hopefully in the coming week or so, we'll get to a point where all of our need to be taken care of things are taken care of and no longer a problem. We can try to settle back into a routine of doing things. But for now, one of the other things I was actually doing the other day was pulling out my Rubik's Cube again. It's been too long since I did it. It's been over a year. So I remember the first 2/3 of the process pretty well. The last third of the process took me way too long to do. So I'm a little off in my game. And there are moths all over the interior of this house now. Because somebody would rather open all the frickin' windows. Yeah, well, anyway, whatever. Let's see. So working on the projects of the topic of board games the other day was mainly just discussing that this month is Solo by Solstice, making a single creator board game. I'm doing a board game this year because I don't think I have the means to do a computer game right now. A board game by the by the summer solstice, which should be the 22nd this year. Let's double check. Summer solstice. 20th of June. So we are rapidly approaching 10 days to bang out a prototype. But I was looking at it, and the idea that I originally had was to make you're the single creator, you're making a board game that should at least have a solo play option. And so I was looking at ideas of single player games that exist out there and seeing what kind of play they get for single player games that way. And as I was looking at them, I was reminded that I have a few games that have a single play option. So I did a review of one years ago. I might have done a couple of them a few years ago, in which one of them was Dragon Strike, which is like a tabletop role-playing game board game, which, I mean, it's an okay game. It's not the best thing in the world. But it has the 4 maps that you use, the figures that you use, and usually in many of the games you'll have somebody play the Dragon Master, and those Dragon Master games, somebody's playing the Dungeon Master of the game. But the single player option has there are some games that are the Dragon Master and 1 player. There are some that are a Dragon Master and multiple players. But there are 1 or 2 of them, I think, that are literally just 1 person. And so I may dig that game out and see if I can figure out some of that. But I do think that would be I think that the problem with that one is it's a much more complicated game system. it's not a deck of cards solitaire game where the rules are you turn over 3 cards at a time and you have to position the cards in sequence, and there's a row at the top to put the aces in when you're ready to pull out a whole section and drop it on there. Like, solitaire card games are pretty straightforward and pretty quick. The tabletop role-playing games like Dragon Strike, you can make solo play versions of them. And I do think that's one of the other things that I talked about the other day was ideas I had for role-playing a solo play on some of those solo play role-playing games. So like Ironsworn, I think I might have a fun idea of what to do with that in a new way so that I can pull it up, do a world build, character build, and then just start narrating the process of the game design with it. But if I want to make a tabletop role-playing game, that's going to be a longer process than I think I have in this month to do it. Now, I could come up with something new from scratch, but one of the other things I have a couple of dungeon crawl. I think this is actually one of them. I haven't done a review on it yet. Dungeon Roll. I think this is a 1-player. 1 to 4 players. So this has a 1-player option, and I can take a look at it and see if I can adapt some of the ideas from it to make a 1-player game. So that's one option. I think I also have a 5-minute dungeon card game that I think it's a 1 to 5 player too. So those have potentially single player options to them. But so Dragon Strike, the 2 dungeon games over there, and trying to remember, I think there was another one that I had. But the final one, I think it's probably a good place to maybe start, is a game it's called Vampire Hunter. And that game, I don't remember specifically if it does say you can play a single player, but most of the mechanics that make the game functional could be made to make it a single player. So let's Vampire Hunter board game. Little bit dusty. Yep, that's the one. Vampire Hunter board game. I think I just inhaled some dust. Ugh. So it's 2 to 4 players is what they say. But one of the mechanics of the game is you have to get through the whole castle to the chamber where the vampire is. And the vampire is in a coffin. And if you don't have all the tools you need if you don't have all the tools you need to defeat him, you get sent back to the beginning. And it would seem like, well, what's the big deal there? You just go back through until you can finally beat him. Well, the problem is there's a track along the top of the board. And there's this old style sailing ship token that moves along it. And certain cards, as you go through play, come up that advance that ship along the board. And the gimmick is that if that ship reaches the end of the line before you defeat and kill the vampire escapes on the ship. So that mechanic itself should very well make that game playable by a single person. Having a timer, essentially, like you have to meet the qualifications to finish this game by this point or the villain gets away, is a perfectly good mechanism for making a single player game. At that point, you're not competing with other players. You're competing with a timer on the board to win. Now, one of the other gimmicks of this game was that it also included, like, the central piece for the game was this tower that if you tap the top of it, it had lights inside. The light would either be blue or red, and the board itself had images in red and blue. So when the light, you play it in the dark, when the light is red, it washes out the red signs on the board. When the light is blue, it washes out the blue things on the board. And both of those make the opposite color things on the board purple. So they're visible on the board. So those aspects of gameplay were sort of gimmicked. There were parts of it that were, let's see if I can find there are parts of it like tiles for the creatures. There were some tiles that you would encounter in areas that might be local villagers. And then at nighttime, they would be werewolves. And so as villagers, they're not problems, but as werewolves, they're dangerous to you. Now, I'm not going to include all of those gimmicky pieces that they used for the gameplay, but that idea that you can use the game that track along the top as a timer for your completion of the goal that you're set yourself, I think that's totally usable as a mechanism for gameplay. Now I have to reinvent the theme. I have to do something else with it. But I think using that idea is good enough to start with, that I think that's probably what I'm going to do. Because the other ideas I had for single-player games are very involved and complicated. And I don't know that I have the time or the ability right now to do super complicated. Although I do have some notes. I had more notes, but apparently the laptop decided to reboot when I was being sick, so it deleted those files. But I've made some notes and ideas for some of the more complicated single-player style games. I've been really thinking about different types and styles of games that I could potentially do with some of these ideas. So like the role-playing game that I could do that's a single-player role-playing game based sort of off of the Dragon Strike, like I would make some drastic changes and adopt some mechanisms that more recent tabletop role-playing games have come out with. Because I believe Dragon Strike was mid-'80s. But there we go. The thing about the Dragon Strike game is I would want to revamp a lot of that. And I'd like to do it in such a way that brings in some of my favorite types of games that I played, like the old Dragon Quest video games. Dragon Warrior video games were my favorite games when I was little. Little, I guess. I wasn't super little, but I really loved those games. And the first game in that series, I believe, used simple trackers for character and monster feats. So in the video game, I believe the character had health points, magic points, and then whatever weapon and armor you're using gave you armor class and attack points. And the monsters similarly had attack, defense, gold they carried, and experience points they gave. That was literally, they had hit points, attack, defense. So you had to, each one of them had a different level of hit points. But yeah, I mean, those were super simple games. And I'd like to think that if I did things right, I should be able to capture some of those kinds of ideas in a tabletop role-playing game. So if I were to take like Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior, they're both the same game. They were just called different things in different regions of the world. But if I were to take a Dragon Quest game and use something like Dragon Strike's role-playing elements for single-player games and use a stat system less like Dragon Strike and more like Dragon Warrior video games, I could probably expand some of that opportunity into a new area. That's my thinking anyway. How believably accurate is that? I don't know, but that was some of my thinking. I just don't think I have enough time during this month to do that, so I'll shelve that for later. But I'm playing with it in the background. And there are a couple other game ideas that I've come up in brainstorming before. And I can't do them right now, but I will look through them for some ideas as to what theme I'm going to put on this reskin of the Vampire Hunter single player mode. I mean, streamlining the process down is basically taking the idea of the Vampire Hunter game, stripping all the theme elements off the board, all the tokens, all the gimmicky lighthouse trick, and literally just breaking it down into, if you play this game without any of the themes on a straight line, from point A to point B, what do you have to arrange? What do you have to have on the board to go a certain way with this? So with that in mind, I think that's what I'm going to be working on this week. For my creative projects. In the meantime, I have to get back into doing some video stuff. It feels like everything's just such a mess right now. I feel like I just do not have the energy to keep up with it. But I got to be doing stuff that I want to enjoy doing. It can't all be just being serious and taking responsibility for all the little pieces. Like if that's all I do, I'm going to go crazy. So I need to do creative stuff too. So that's what I'm working on. I think I'm going to call it at a half hour tonight. And I will catch you possibly on Thursday night. Definitely by Sunday. And here's hoping everything doesn't fall apart in the meantime. Alrighty. I will catch you later. Take care and have a good one.